Welcome to 2018. Happy late New Year, everyone. We apologize that we haven't had any recent reviews lately. We have been having a lot of personal things going on, so we apologize that we haven't been keeping up to date with a lot of video reviews.
I have been doing a lot of written reviews, but you YouTube people can't see it, so
yeah, you can check our channel.
But we are coming back. We're about to do we'll get back into routine. We're still doing our reviews.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're also posting written reviews of films that we had to catch up with on 2017 in time for the Oscar season coming up, and so you can feel free to check out those written reviews that we did, both me and him did, on our website with filmfreaks.com. Yeah. But anyway, now we get to one of the films that we're supposed to see a couple weeks ago, but we didn't get a chance to, which was Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, which is directed by Jake Kasdan, and
this is the sequel
to the 1995, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 95. Jumanji that starred Robin Williams, and this is actually taking place around about 20 or maybe 25 to 30 years, or about 21 or 22 years after the original film.
Yeah.
And this one stars Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, Jack Black, Karen Gillan, and a few among others. And this basically deals with these teenagers that is kind of reminiscent of Breakfast Club, because these kids that are basically in high school, they start out and they're trying to live their everyday lives. They get into some trouble at school and stuff, and you have your typical kind of nerdy guy, you have the jock, and you got the preppy girl, and things like that, and you got the kind of the outsider. So basically it's like the Breakfast Club meets like Jumanji, so to speak.
And of course they find the video game now that Jumanji has been converted into a video game, and the trailer shows you itself. They put it in, they get sucked in the game, and they become avatars.
Yeah, where now as you see in the trailers, you get to see Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, and all them basically having to survive the game like they're actually playing a video game in order to get to basically escape.
Yeah.
Now, here's some backstory for you. Now, basically growing up, Jumanji, the original film with Robin Williams, was one of my favorite films growing up. Not only was it one of my favorite like comedies that he starred in, but also it was a fun adventure type film.
Yeah, it was a real fun family adventure, and I'm sure there's people who ain't from not the 90s who care about it. Probably do care about it, but that original was really for 80s and 90s kids.
Yeah, it was a film that was basically it was at a time when board games were still popular thing, because the original film dealt with a board game.
You gotta think that when this came out, we had of course we had video games like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, and some shit like that, but we were not living in a video game world yet. We had them, but they were so expensive that nobody could afford them. So you had a friend or two you'd go over and play Sega or Nintendo with and stuff. Those were still new. And even whenever they were cheap, no one really gave a shit about video games, because we grew up in a time, well, mainly me especially, where we actually went outdoors and did shit. So video games wasn't a thing. Board games, on the other hand, was a thing,
especially with Monopoly, things like that.
That's why we ended up getting Zrotha and all that other. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing too. But before we get to that, basically the original Jumanji dealt with Robin Williams' character when he started out, who was a boy in that original film, who was basically finds this old abandoned board game that gets him sucked into this world after he makes a mistake, and basically the rest of the film deals with some years later where these kids have to actually end up playing the game themselves, and then they discover he's in there. Yeah. And I gotta admit, that original film, even though it has some outdated effects here and there, I still think it holds up quite well.
Yeah, it still holds up, other than a few CGI stampede scenes.
And maybe
still really holds up. Yeah, the monkeys are pretty CGI. They still have a very good practical lion in it.
Yeah, I like that lion part. And
he's actually pretty fucking scary when it's all... The way they shot him made it feel so fucking real.
Yeah. So there are some questionable, like, CGI in that film that doesn't hold up quite as well like it used to. But I remember when I first watched it, I was enthused by it with those effects.
Yeah.
And it was just a fun general adventure where it had a lot of heart to it, you know. So with this one, well, and then after that, about like say 10 years later, we got this other one that was actually, because the film itself, Jumanji, was based on a book written by, I forgot the guy's name, but basically that same author would later write a book called Zathura, which dealt with a similar kind of premise to Jumanji. They would later make a film of that in like 2005 or something, and it starred a young Josh Hutcherson. Yeah. And I remember that one. I watched a couple times, and I didn't like it quite as much as Jumanji, but I didn't think it was like terrible. It was just kind of forgettable mainly.
Yeah. So like we said, they become avatars in this new movie, Welcome to the Jungle. They become avatars and they get sucked into the video game. And pretty much the game plays out like a standard video game where you have to go levels and pass through things.
Lives and
you can actually die and then get 3 chances to die in this film.
Yeah.
Which they show. But we also get an introduction. Well, I'll get to the cons in this part. We get to run into a villain in this game who's got kind of like an eye.
Van Pelt.
Yeah.
If you remember in the original
reminds me of Cable. Kind of.
From Deadpool.
Yeah.
Well, because if you remember in the original Jumanji, for those of you who have seen the original Jumanji, there was also a villain in that one named Van Pelt, where basically, much like in this one, he was a hunter that was like trying to go after our main characters and stuff. So they brought back that same character in this film, but they wrote him differently.
Yeah, they wrote him differently. Now he's like this guy with ninjas and fucking motorcycles and guns and stuff like that. And the game pretty much plays out like a video game, a standard cheap video game.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was like on Atari or something.
It looks. I think it looked like it was like it came in cartridges still.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Sega nice. It might have been
a ColecoVision or something, like some of those off like later brands that were kind of playing like Atari, like in the 80s. But basically, I'll admit when I went into this.
Oh, and they have to get a jewel to that the main villain stole, and then pretty much that's the whole levels. They gotta get to the Jumanji thing, this thing,
orb or whatever, this gem, to put it back in its place
and finally end the curse.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, if for those of you who have been following our channel, if you remember back when the trailer first came out, I actually did a reaction video to the film. You can still it's still on my channel if you want to check it out. I was not looking forward to this film at all. I will tell you right now, this film, when I went into it, I was expecting to be based on the trailer, because if you remember if you watched my trailer action, I was so like really infuriated just seeing the trailers, because it felt like to me that they were ruining what the original film was like.
And just don't lie that there's a lot of original shit that were really good that does got a tendency to get ruined.
Yeah.
So when I saw the trailer, I was fucking pissed, dude. Like, it looks so goddamn standard and just like 2017-ish washed. It's just
and it looked annoying too.
In the video game thing, I wasn't feeling it, and especially I just wasn't even feeling the actors and the actress. I just wasn't feeling anything out of this trailer. This is probably by far the worst trailer I saw this year.
Besides probably the Emoji Movie.
Yeah, the Emoji,
which we haven't seen, but we've heard that film was pretty bad. But anyway, so you can tell going into it, I wasn't myself really. I was actually wanting this movie to fail based on what I heard. But surprisingly, from what I've heard when the movie came out, because it came out, it's actually been out for a while. Surprisingly, the film got quite a lot of great reviews from not only critics, but also some other people we know from Facebook and everything. A lot of people have loved the film. And hey, you know what? I can honestly admit that the film was better than what we expected. But keep in mind, I know if you still like this movie, that's cool. We appreciate everyone's opinion and everything. I do find it quite overrated, so to speak.
Yes, it is very overrated. Now, like he said, when we finished it, I was like, okay, this was not as bad as the trailers made it out to be. So the trailer marketing was fucking horrible. But this movie is still not good. Yeah. It really is.
It isn't. Now, it's basically to kind of go into our cons first, since since we kind of have like it's basically a mixed bag for us. So we'll go into our pros.
Yeah.
I will admit that the cast themselves, when they when they actually get to the Avatar sequences, when they get to the actual game world of Jumanji, I'll admit that everyone who plays their part, Dwayne Johnson and Jack Black and all of them I thought were great, like together, working together as a team.
Yes. I was worried about their chemistry and them all together. I'm kind of 50-50 on this. The cast didn't piss me off like I thought they were going to do.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to really be really bad, and they weren't. Now, that being said, I think The Rock and Kevin Hart need to take time apart for a while, because they seem to play the same characters every film, even though they do something different where he plays like the girly, or like Rock does something cool where he's doing the wussy thing, and then you got Kevin Hart playing the badass, because in the real world, Kevin Hart is actually the big guy. And then The Rock is kind of
smaller,
the nerd. So, I like that, but I feel like, all right, for example, I feel like Kevin Hart acts the same way every movie.
Yeah.
I feel like The Rock doesn't change his outfit because it looks like he's wearing the Rampage outfit, the Bring Down outfit.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like he's doing a lot of jungle films.
Yeah,
the Rundown, and he does all these jungle films. He's been doing a lot more lately, and it feels like he doesn't change that same out. It looks like the same outfit. I mean, give or take, I like how they did the twist where he's actually a nerd and he plays like a dork and he's not a badass in this film per se. I just feel like I feel like when I look at them two, I see like 6 movies they've already done straight together.
Yeah, like if you remember, they did a film called Central Intelligence, which I never watched. I didn't like. But Kevin Hart and Dwayne Johnson were in that film, and from what he told me, like it just didn't work.
It didn't work. That's another overhyped movie too.
Yeah, but overall, I will say that for Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart in this film, they work together fine. I think them two at least the most, and the girl Karen Gillan. I think them 3 work the best at times together. To me, and I also admit, Jack Black has some funny lines here and there, and I'll admit he didn't quite annoy me like I thought he was in the trailers.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I take it back. I'm sorry, I meant to mean Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart didn't annoy me as I thought he did with some of the stuff I see in the trailers, because he kind of toned down a little bit compared to like other films he was in.
Yeah, you still see them, but they did act a little bit better than what we thought.
Yeah, but I also got to give praise to this. I will admit that the film did expand on some ideas from the actual Jumanji world, because I like the way that they actually took it into a video game world, where now it's basically... it plays out like a video game itself, where when you get jumped in, you actually get to play as like your avatar characters and stuff like that.
That was our biggest worry when we saw the trailers. I was freaking out about how they were going to video game really and all that bullshit. Now that I see that they actually paid homage to the original starting off, we
won't tell you what happens. Basically, this film actually does explain what happens from the original film.
And they actually bring certain names from the original, so we get to know
what happens, basically.
You get like they do
honor their respect.
Yeah,
I will admit
I was happy with. I will say that's a pro for me. But yeah, when they did that, I was happy, and we can't tell you that, but because of that, it makes it more clear. Now that it's a video game, then you're like, oh, okay, I can deal with that.
I can buy with that now, because the trailers had more. I was like, no,
they just
please.
Basically, the trailers market it as in it has nothing to do with the original. Fuck the original. It never happened. It's a video game.
Yeah.
This actually something happens in the movie. And it pays respects to that and shows you how it went to a video game.
Yeah, which I actually give them credit.
So I give that a pro.
But one of the things I also enjoyed was there are some fun action sequences here and there that I do enjoy. Like there's that part where The Rock has that boomerang and he hits all those dudes at once. After he thinks it doesn't work.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like that, and I also liked how the 3 lives thing
that actually was cool, because I actually like the vulnerability they bring in this. I do give that, because they actually make it to where they do have to work together, because they realize if they don't actually work together, they're screwed. They're in the game forever.
Yeah, or they die. Or they die.
And plus, it's also cool how they play out like video games. Like in certain characters have like certain abilities and stuff. Like when they hit like their shoulder or their chest or whatever, it brings up the little stats of what their strengths and abilities. And I will admit, I did get a chuckle out of this part where it showed Kevin Hart's status and his character, his weakness is cake.
He's basically the pussy, and he's in real life he's like the badass, and this one he got dealt the wrong hands and got like the biggest pussy in the game, avatar in the game, and the guy's got like a list of shit that can go wrong with him. He's weak at everything. The only thing he is a guy that carries
zootologist.
He carries weapons in his backpack just for other people to be badass.
Yeah,
and he's like a big pussy. So that was pretty funny.
Well, that I also enjoyed some of the other things too. Like there are some humor here throughout that I actually enjoyed, like mainly coming from The Rock, and there are even parts here and there like from Jack Black that cracks me up here and there. Like there's this one part where, because basically Jack Black's character is a girl in real life, and basically she is playing Jack Black's character like it's her own, and there's actually one part where she has to go use the bathroom, and it actually cracked me up quite a bit.
She's asking him how to use her wiener and all that. Yeah, that was funny. And usually I'm not a big crude joke type person. I don't get into fart, poop, and nut jokes if it's overused, but this one did it all right. So it didn't overdo it. So
And I'll admit, even some of the effects they use in this one didn't piss me off like I thought they would in the trailers, because in the trailers I was like, oh god, those effects look bad. Now, there are some effects in there that don't look quite as good, but I can kind of give it somewhat of a kind of leniency because it's in a video game world. So it would make sense that you would kind of have these type of graphics that probably don't look the best. So if they look, I guess they kind of get that kind of pass with it. Okay. Not saying they're good, I'm just saying that it makes sense why they would work in that world.
Yeah. So now here with our cons. I'm going to start off with my first con of this review. That I like the guy who played the boss, but I felt like he was hardly in this movie.
The villain?
The villain, dude.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't care for that villain, to be honest. Now, I know I might be calling back from the original film, keep in mind, but to me, the original Van Pelt that's from the original film, he fit with that world because he had a purpose. In the original film, that Van Pelt was more about him going after Alan, Robin Williams' character, because, keep in mind, that same guy who plays him was the guy who played Robin with his dad. So you kind of get like the whole, where Robin Williams is basically having to face his fears. So that made sense with that character.
Yeah, this guy
doesn't work.
Yeah, and another con with what I was explaining my con is it kind of remind me of the fucking G.I. Joe with those guys.
Yeah, because
I didn't think they fit that world with that fucking ninja, fucking motorcycle and machine gun. I was like,
in a way, it's basically the equivalent if you took, like, if you ever played the Uncharted series, it's kind of like those guys. But I will say, if this was based on a video game, it was quite a decent adaptation. Yeah, if it was based on a video game.
If it was actually not trying to be called Jumanji.
Right, I'm just saying if it was based on like an actual video game or something, it would probably work.
It's just I didn't think it fit with Jumanji.
I know.
And that's one of my complaints. Like I said, the villain's hardly in this, which I don't even get.
I don't even care about him.
Yeah, I don't even know his damn purpose.
Other than the jewel and that. He didn't really have anything.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's like in the beginning, then he's like in a 1 minute scene in the middle, and he really doesn't come in really at all until the end.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, what's the fucking point in that dude?
Well, that, and I also, as much as now here's where I kind of get to my con with Jack Black. As much as I like Jack Black here and there with his character, he was actually the one out of the group that kind of annoyed me the most. Now, I know that he's considered like the most standout, and that's cool for those of you that, like the film and everything. But to me, there are points in the film where I felt like he really didn't, like, his comedic timing didn't work.
He overdid the girl part too much.
Yeah, it's not the fact that he overdid it. It's just that when the way
I just got annoyed with the girl.
And it was just the way it was delivered with the lines and stuff. I was like, I'm not really getting into this. So that he was actually the one that stood out for me more so than the rest of them. Yeah. The rest of the thing was that I felt like the film just could have.
It had some bad CGI.
It did. It had some of that. Parts, and just the humor itself was... I wasn't really laughing a lot like I was, intended to. It was just kind of like... They would throw humor in that just didn't always work well.
Yeah, it was... it's your typical 2017. We're in this new era of generation humor that I don't really get into unless it's done right. And it bothered me.
That, and I also didn't care about the kids like they're in the beginning.
I really didn't.
Honestly, like, I know that they're supposed to represent, the everyday... teenage life and everything, which I get.
They do that same shit all the time.
I just felt like I found that better used with Power Rangers from 2007.
Exactly.
Because those characters I could actually get more into based on their arcs. Or based on their personalities.
They do that same stuff all the time where you get the jock, the nerd, and all that stuff. Yeah. Which I thought 80s and 90s did a lot better than they do today.
Yeah.
And stuff. But another thing, I'm trying to think what it was that... This is a common complaint I've seen from other reviews, and when I went and seen this, I kind of agree with a lot of reviewers on this. You would think that they would show more Jumanji-esque animals in this.
They do. They overuse too much of the
G.I.
henchman kind of guys. We barely get really all the animals in this. Like, we get maybe a couple scenes, like at the beginning and then maybe toward the middle. But a lot of time, and then a little bit toward the end. But a lot of the animals aren't used as much.
Like we don't get to see the cool giant spiders that they had in the original, which were practical.
Yeah.
We don't get to see
the
lions or alligator. Well, we saw the alligator when they were walking over the thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Right, yeah.
But I mean, these animals are just split second, boom, 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 they're off screen.
I mean, I get
and Jumanji, the original, that was what was scary about this world, is because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I get that they're trying to do something a little different than having to use just the same enemies from the first one. Mm-hmm. But to me, still, if you're in a wide a wide world where it's all jungle and stuff, you would want to take advantage of that, and they don't do it as much.
And that kind of really.
Because they don't in Flex, some of the weaknesses that they do, they only use them in like one scene. Some of the weaknesses that the characters have, they don't always like go into detail with those.
Yep. Throughout the film, also, I gotta complain about is I was kind of getting bored with a lot of this fucking movie. Like throughout, like it was like, kind of getting annoyed with the kids because the kids got a little. They kind of like stretched that a little bit farther than I thought they were going to go.
Yeah.
Before they become avatars. Then when they're avatars, there's things I was getting into. But then whenever they're just, the levels that they were playing were kind of really getting boring.
Yeah, because there would be times where they would try to enhance character development, which I get, but it just seemed like stuff I wasn't really getting into.
Especially when they're trying to do the whole romantic part.
Yeah.
You got two people falling in love. You got the one that's trying to get with Nick Jonas, but he's a guy, Jack Blackish type thing. Then you get the redhead, kind of wanting her. And you just get that typical love thing, and it's just like...
Yeah,
they do it like rinse and repeat. I'm like, this is kind of getting boring, man.
Yeah, so that really brought it down for me. But I will say that in the end, though, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is not necessarily as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But it's certainly, I feel like it still could have been, it still wasn't.
It's
forgettable at best.
I probably won't watch it.
I mean, it is definitely something I can understand a lot of people like, and that's cool, but I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah, it's just not for me either. So.
But it's definitely not, it's not going to be a lot worse or anything, so.
With that said, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm going to give it 5. Well, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 as well. And for those of you who have also seen Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, let us know in the comments of what you thought about it, and also on the original as well. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe and check out our website at filmfreaks.com and our reviews here on YouTube. And we'll see you in our next review. We'll see you later.
Later.